The lake house looked ready to collapse. That was the first thing Mason Reed thought as he parked his rusted pickup beside the overgrown driveway. The second thing he noticed was the fresh footprints. Someone had been there recently. The footprints stopped at the front porch. None came back. He frowned. The property had supposedly been abandoned for nearly 15 years. So why would anyone visit now? 3 weeks earlier, Mason sat quietly in a lawyer's office while his grandfather's estate was divided. His older sister inherited the family ranch. His uncle received the commercial fishing business. Investment accounts disappeared one after another. Then the attorney turned toward Mason. The Willow Point Lake House transfers entirely to Mason Reed. Silence. Then came the smiles. The old place by the lake. One cousin laughed. I thought the roof already caved in. Another shrugged. It'll cost more to demolish than it's worth. More laughter followed. Mason simply signed the papers. At 21 years old, disappointment had become familiar. 6 months earlier, his girlfriend, Chloe, ended their 3-year relationship. We want different futures. That was how she explained it. A week later, she was dating a successful real estate developer nearly twice Mason's age. Friends tried comforting him. It wasn't meant to be. But that didn't erase the feeling of being left behind. Now everyone else inherited successful businesses. He inherited a collapsing lake house. Maybe Chloe had been right. Maybe he wasn't going anywhere. The drive to Willow Point took nearly 4 hours. Dense pine forests surrounded the quiet lake. Crystal clear water reflected distant mountains. The scenery looked breathtaking. The house did not. Broken shutters hung crooked. The dock leaned into the water. Paint peeled from every wall. Vines climbed across the porch. Nature was slowly reclaiming everything. Yet something felt strange. The front steps had been swept clean. Freshly, Mason climbed onto the porch. The front door wasn't locked. Inside smelled of cedar, old books, lake water, and machine oil. He stopped walking. Machine oil? That made no sense. The house should have smelled abandoned. Instead, someone had cared for it. Dust barely covered the furniture. The stone fireplace had recently been cleaned. Kitchen shelves remained organized. Even the windows looked polished. He slowly explored each room. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms. Everything appeared frozen in time. Not abandoned. Preserved. Then he noticed an envelope sitting on the old dining table. Mason, his grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. He opened it carefully. Inside rested a handwritten note. If you're reading this, everyone ignored the lake house exactly as expected. Despite everything. Mason smiled. That sounded exactly like Grandpa. The letter continued. Don't repair the walls first. Repair the roof. Nothing else. No explanation. No goodbye. Just instructions. Exactly how Grandpa always communicated. The next several days became exhausting. Mason replaced broken shingles, strengthened roof beams, cleared fallen trees, rebuilt sections of the porch, fixed leaking gutters. Every evening, he collapsed into bed completely exhausted. Oddly enough, the work helped. Instead of thinking about Chloe, he focused on solving problems. Each repaired board felt like proof he wasn't as directionless as everyone believed. By the 6th day, rain finally arrived. Heavy rain. For hours it hammered the roof. Mason smiled. Not a single leak. He had done good work. Then, clunk. A deep metallic sound echoed somewhere inside the walls. He froze. Another. Clunk. Not random. Mechanical. He grabbed a flashlight. The sound seemed to come from the upstairs hallway. He searched every room. Nothing. The following evening, the sound returned. Exactly 10 o'clock. Same place. Same vibration. This time he examined every wall carefully. Near the master bedroom, he noticed something unusual. One section of pine paneling looked slightly newer than the surrounding wood. Barely noticeable. Almost impossible to detect. His heartbeat quickened. No. He knocked gently. Solid. Solid. Then, hollow. He smiled. There you are. He searched for hidden latches. Nothing. Then he noticed an old brass coat hook mounted beside the wall. Unlike every other hook, it pointed downward. Almost deliberately. He grabbed it. Turned. Click. Deep inside the wall. Ancient gears quietly shifted. The pine panels slowly slid sideways. Mason stepped backward. Hidden behind it. A narrow staircase. Descending. Not upward. Downward. Far below the lake house. Cold air drifted upward. Attached beside the entrance rested another envelope. Mason. Again. Grandpa's handwriting. Hands trembling, he opened it. Good. You found the hallway everyone walked past. The note continued. The lake house isn't your inheritance. It's protecting it. Mason's pulse accelerated. He grabbed the flashlight, carefully descended. The staircase continued much farther than expected. Natural rock gradually became reinforced concrete. Steel support beams lined the tunnel. Ventilation systems quietly hummed. Automatic lights flickered on. The passage finally opened. Mason stopped walking. An enormous underground complex stretched beneath the shoreline. Archive halls, engineering workshops, research laboratories, climate-controlled vaults, rows of secured storage rooms. Everything immaculate, everything operational, everything preserved. What? He whispered. Is this? He slowly walked toward the nearest archive cabinet. Each one carried engraved brass labels. Property holdings, patent archives, marine technologies, royalty agreements, current operations. Current, not abandoned. Current. His heartbeat accelerated. He opened one cabinet. Lake restoration systems, water purification technologies, dock engineering designs, current licensing agreements, current royalty reports. Everything remained active. Everything still generated income. Then, he noticed a magnificent walnut desk positioned beneath the center of the underground chamber. Resting neatly on top, one final envelope. His name, written in Grandpa's familiar handwriting. Mason. His hands trembled, because suddenly he understood. The secret wall stash wasn't hiding money. It had been protecting the greatest legacy Grandpa had spent an entire lifetime quietly building. Mason stood silently beside the walnut desk. The underground complex stretched beneath Willow Point like a hidden world no map had ever recorded. Archive halls, research laboratories, engineering workshops, climate-controlled vaults. Rows of polished steel cabinets extended farther than he could see. Nothing looked abandoned. Nothing looked forgotten. Everything looked ready for work. Slowly, he reached for the final envelope. His grandfather's familiar handwriting tightened his throat. He opened it carefully. Inside rested a thick handwritten letter. The first sentence made him smile. If you've reached this room, then Willow Point finally fulfilled its purpose. Mason lowered himself into the leather chair. The letter continued. Good. Everyone thought I spent my retirement fixing an old lake house. The truth is, I spent it protecting something much bigger. Attached behind the letter were access cards, legal documents, ownership certificates, and financial reports. The first page carried a title, Reed Water Systems. The name meant nothing to Mason. Not yet. He continued reading. Freshwater purification systems, floating dock engineering, lake restoration technologies, flood protection infrastructure, renewable hydroelectric equipment, dozens of patented inventions, hundreds of licensing agreements. Every one still active. Every one still generating royalties. Current royalties. Not historical. Current. Mason slowly leaned back. Grandpa hadn't hidden stacks of money inside the walls. He had quietly built technologies that cities, marinas, environmental agencies, and engineering firms still relied upon every day. The letter continued. People admire beautiful lakes. Few ever think about the people protecting them. Mason laughed softly. That sounded exactly like Grandpa, always solving problems nobody noticed. Then he reached the financial summaries. His breath caught. The yearly royalty income exceeded anything he could imagine. Enough to erase every debt. Enough to rebuild the future he thought disappeared after Chloe left. Enough to secure generations. Yet strangely, the money wasn't what affected him most. One question remained. Why him? The answer appeared on the next page. Now let's talk about something more valuable than success. His hands trembled. You probably think I left this to you because your sister received the ranch. You're wrong. He swallowed. I left it to you because you're the only one who still enjoys repairing broken things. His eyes filled with tears. The letter continued. When everyone else bought new bicycles, you rebuilt old ones. When neighbors threw away engines, you spent weekends making them run again. Most people only see value after something becomes successful. You've always seen value before anyone else. Mason closed his eyes. For months he had replayed Chloe's final words. You don't have enough ambition. You're never going to build anything important. Those sentences had haunted him every day. Yet Grandpa had quietly believed the exact opposite. The letter continued. At 17, you thought repairing things was just a hobby. I knew it was how you understood the world. He smiled through tears. Grandpa had noticed everything, even when nobody else had. He opened another cabinet. Leather-bound journals filled every shelf. Nearly 40 years of them. The earliest volumes contained engineering sketches, water filtration ideas, prototype drawings, business plans. Gradually, the entries became personal. Family photographs, fishing trips, camping weekends, childhood memories. One journal stopped him, written after Mason rebuilt Grandpa's old fishing boat. He didn't ask how much the repair would cost. He asked how long the boat would last. That's the difference between someone chasing money and someone creating value. Mason quietly laughed. He barely remembered that conversation. Grandpa clearly did. Then he turned another page. An entry written after Chloe first visited the lake house. She admires polished things. Mason admires unfinished things. One sees what already exists. The other sees what something can become. Another entry, written after the breakup. The handwriting appeared heavier. He's blaming himself. He shouldn't. The people who build quietly are rarely understood by those chasing appearances. Mason lowered the journal. Months of self-doubt suddenly felt smaller. Then he found one final page. If he ever finds the room beneath Willow Point, I hope he discovers confidence before fortune. For several minutes, he simply sat there, listening to the gentle hum of the underground facility. Because suddenly, the hidden complex no longer felt like an inheritance. It felt like belief. Years of belief. Quietly waiting until he was ready. The following months transformed everything. Patent attorneys verified every invention. Financial auditors confirmed every licensing agreement. Engineers inspected every technology. Everything proved authentic. Every patent remained active. Every ownership record legally belonged to Mason. Soon the offers began. International engineering companies, environmental corporations, private investment firms, global manufacturers. The numbers became unbelievable. Enough money to retire before turning 22. Enough to disappear forever. One evening Mason sat alone reviewing another acquisition proposal. One signature would solve every financial concern for the rest of his life. He almost considered it. Then he noticed a framed photograph resting beside Grandpa's drafting table. It showed 12-year-old Mason covered in sawdust while proudly holding a crooked wooden dock he had built by hand. Grandpa stood behind him laughing with one hand on his shoulder. Beneath the photograph sat one handwritten sentence. The world has enough people buying greatness. Never stop building it. Mason smiled. The decision became effortless. He declined every offer. Instead, he expanded Reed Water Systems. He funded scholarships for young engineers focused on environmental restoration, created grants for small inventors who couldn't afford patent protection, helped restore polluted lakes and rivers across rural communities, developed affordable water purification systems for towns that had gone decades without reliable clean water. The same kind of practical work Grandpa always believed mattered most. As the years passed, Willow Point Lake House slowly became something extraordinary. From the outside, it remained exactly what everyone remembered. A quiet wooden house beside a peaceful lake. Fresh paint. A restored dock. Flower boxes beneath the windows. Nothing flashy. Most visitors admired the beautiful view without ever imagining the remarkable innovation center hidden beneath the shoreline. And Mason wanted it that way. His sister eventually visited one autumn afternoon. She stood on the rebuilt dock watching the sunset reflect across the lake. I always thought Grandpa loved this place because it was peaceful. Mason smiled. He did. She looked at him. But now I think he also loved it because nobody looked twice. Mason laughed. Exactly. People often asked about the lake house, the hidden wall, the secret room, the fortune. They believed the underground complex had changed his life. But they misunderstood. The hidden facility gave him opportunity. His grandfather's faith gave him something infinitely greater. The confidence to trust the kind of person he had always been. Because hidden behind the wall of an old lake house wasn't simply a fortune. It was proof that the people who quietly rebuild broken things often become the very people capable of building the strongest futures. And sometimes, the greatest inheritance isn't what someone leaves behind. It's discovering that someone believed in your potential long before you ever believed in it yourself.